Hey guys, it's Ben. I want to share a game with you today, and I want to talk about some of the psychology of chess, because very often it's possible to win a game of chess even if you don't play better than your opponent. Psychology can be a very, very powerful weapon. Okay, so the game I'm going to share with you today is a game that I just played this morning, and I've been having a difficult couple of days. It seemed like I have some days where it seems like I can't lose. Maybe my brain power is just that much higher. I'm kind of a bit more alert. And some days it seems like I can't win. So I think my blitz rating had dropped from like 1450 down to 1350 in the space of about 24 hours. It just kept losing. Just couldn't seem to get into my stride. Anyway, but this is a rapid game. This is a 30-minute game I just played, and I really should have lost it. I played quite badly. I think the accuracy rating, according to chess.com, was like 33, something like that. So it's a really, really poor game, and yet I managed to pull a win out of the bag. So I want to go through the game, and I want to talk about the psychology of how that might have happened. And the lesson from this is really important. The lesson is that, even if you make mistakes, even if you blunder, it is still possible to beat an opponent. Now, one thing you have to remember, that even if your opponent is 1600 rated, okay, everyone makes mistakes. Maybe, when grandmasters play grandmasters, they still make mistakes. Okay, it does happen. Chess is about who makes the penultimate mistake. That's normally the winner. Okay, so let's go through the game, and it's not a game that I'm proud of sharing, but I think it is really instructive. Okay, so I've got the white pieces. My opponent, Jmarv 30, he's rated 70 points below me, right? So he's 1371 here. He's not, he's no idiot. But one of the things, the first thing, is that I kind of intended to play a 10-minute game. When I clicked on the button, it just flashed into 30-minute, because that's the time control I'd played in my previous game. Okay, so but I went ahead and did it anyway. But I only wanted to play a quick game, and I kind of started this as though I was playing a blitz game almost, right? So I play e4. My opponent plays d6 instantly. I grab the center with d4, and then he plays knight f6. This is the pirch defense. And I was a little bit interested to see whether he'd actually play the black lion, which is the one that I've been playing a lot as black in response to e4, which would probably be next move, knight to d7. But so we carry on. Obviously, my pawn on e4 is under attack, so I defend it with the bishop. e6 is played. I bring my knight out with an extra defender on the pawn. Knight comes out, and what do I say all the time in all my videos? Give yourself enough time to scan the board. Is anything undefended? Well, my pawn here on d7 is undefended since I moved my light square bishop out to d3 and blocked it. So d4 is undefended. I didn't take time to notice that. I spent 7 seconds, 17, 5 and 5 on these moves. I've neglected to scan the board. This is my 5th move, and I've only used 30 seconds right on the clock out of 30 minutes. Okay, so I come in to pin the knight, and his knight snatches the free pawn. Why not? It's a free pawn. Okay, so I proceed as though nothing's wrong at this point. So I take 16 seconds over my next move. I come out with my knight. Okay, as though this is some kind of gambit that I've played before. All right. His knight retreats. I pin his other knight. So now both his knights are pinned. That one's pinned against the queen. That one's pinned against the king. All right. So he brings his bishop out. Makes perfect sense. He's also getting ready to castle kingside. And I think, well, let's go ahead and grab that pawn with check, forcing the b pawn to recapture, and that will at least double his pawns, right? So he does indeed recapture, and I start to increase the pressure, bringing my queen out. Now I thought about that, what was that, 13 seconds, that move. Again, I'm playing blitz-like still at this point in time. So I'm just trying to remember the logic behind that move. I think one idea potentially is maybe if bishop takes, I don't know, there must be some reason for it. So the queen's looking there, and of course this pawn is also undefended and in front of the king. Oh yeah, okay, I think I remember what it was. So my idea is castle long to bring the rook instantly onto this semi-open d file, and then ideas about playing e5. So if e5, d can't take e5, well, that's my idea, because my queen would be able to go in and get his queen, but it's not properly thought through. It's 13 seconds worth of thought through. Okay, so he pushes up to kick my queen away. That's not really a problem. I just come back one square. He manoeuvres his bishop to b7, so he's got two attackers on that pawn. I've got two defenders, so nothing too worrying. So I go ahead with my plan and castle. Yeah, the other thing was at the beginning of this game that I actually wanted to go to the toilet as well. So I think that was 1 minute 49. So I think that's when I actually decided to go, probably. So black castles. I push my pawn up. Now, this queen now is defended by a bishop and two rooks. So there is absolutely nothing to stop black from going ahead and capturing the pawn on e5, which is exactly what he does. So now I'm 2 pawns down, right? I'm breaking all my own rules. I'm rushing my play. I'm not really thinking it through. So yeah, it's a bit embarrassing already, but I think let's carry on. Let's carry on. I move my queen up there, actually leaving the pawn on g2 now completely hanging. What does my opponent do? So what I'm doing here is I'm thinking about, we've got some loose pawns now. There's double pawns there. There's double pawns there as well. So although I've given up 2 pawns, giving up a pawn while creating a doubled pawn, especially if they're isolated like these ones are on the C file, is not such a bad thing. You should have good opportunities to pick those pawns back up later in the game. But black misses my attack. Oh yeah, of course. So moving that out of the way comes with an attack on the queen. So black can't capture g2. He moves his queen out of the way also to defend the bishop there, which was hanging. So now I do notice that g2 is hanging, and I push f3 to protect it. Black plays rook to b8. I bring my bishop, my queen across to a5 because a7 is now undefended. And he moves his other knight across to defend that bishop. I go ahead and capture the knight because I noticed that this bishop here is the only defender of the knight, and it's also the only defender of the pawn on c5. So bishop takes. I go ahead and capture a7, and then he moves his c pawn out of the way, so I can't carry on and grab that one. As I've castled long, I do have this, you always have this weakness of the a pawn when you castle long. A lot of times you'll see the king come over to b1 or to b8 at the other end of the board for black. So I'm thinking now I want to improve my knight. So I'm thinking that this square on e4 looks really, really good for the knight. It can hit the bishop. If I take that bishop, he's got 3 files with double pawns. But the bishop comes in, gives check. That gives me the opportunity to move my king to b1. I'm now 1 pawn down, and black plays rook to a8, kicking the queen. Queen comes back to c5, The bishop comes in here playing the role of a tall pawn, reinforcing that pawn chain, and also preventing my queen from capturing c4. So I decide here that bishops are worth more than knights on an open board. So I go ahead and grab that, and I also realise that if black recaptures with the pawn, I can take the pawn, and I go ahead and take the pawn with my queen, again leaving c4 now undefended. This bishop is also undefended. This bishop, of course, is also undefended, so this pawn can't really move out of the way, or the bishop will fall. So black now comes on the offensive and moves his queen over to a6, clearly eyeing up a2. There's very little I can do other than push a3. And now he pushes c3. Now I now think for 2 minutes 23 seconds about my next move. There's some huge risks here, and really this is, black should have won this game quite easily now. Risk is if, for example, if I take with the pawn, queen can come down, capture, and then onto a1, easy checkmate, right? Now I can't push the pawn because the same happens. Queen will come down, snatch a3, and checkmate. And of course I can't move my king can't escape from here. It can't go to c1 because this bishop is guarding that square, and even if I could, the pawn is guarding d2, right? Can I move my rook out of the way potentially? Let's say I move my rook, say, to there. Again, queen can just come in, grab the pawn, and there's very little I can do about that. My knight is too far away to come to the rescue, so I'm in a world of hurt at this point. So in a situation like this, when your opponent has a clear attacking opportunity, the risk being that pawn takes and leaves a3 undefended, okay? Very often attack is the best form of defense, okay? So I took over 2 minutes about this move, gave it a good think, and decided to play my knight from g3 to e4, and this does a couple of things. It hits the bishop here. Can't play chess today, and I can't move my mouse either. There you go. So it's attacking the pawn. So if my knight is able to take the pawn, then I've got my knight and my queen both then looking at a2, so that could nullify the attack there. Likewise, I'm thinking if my knight can capture the dark square bishop, is there time to run away? Okay, so now what my opponent should have done at this point, I think, is simply captured on b2 and proceeded with the plan. Let me take the bishop, queen comes into a3, it's checkmate next move. There's really nothing I can do. I can put my queen in the way, it gets captured, checkmate anyway. Okay, so he thought for 40 seconds at this point. Now he's got 14 minutes on the clock as well. Okay, but I think that this threat somehow confused him and almost made him forget his what a strong position he was in. Right, all it takes is calculation. So the key lesson for all of this is, when you are in a winning position, take your time, right? When you're in a losing position, take your time, right? So it took me over 2 minutes to find this knight move, okay? And very often in chess, there are moves there that are just, there to be discovered, but you have to be creative, and you have to think, you have to consider every move on the board, okay? So I still believe he could have just proceeded with his plan and won at this point. Okay, now he does take on b2, right? So let's think this through now. I could now maybe pop my queen into a2. If queen takes, we simply exchange queens. and then king takes b2, and I've got a fighting chance. The bishop is still there, obviously. So that's a possibility. In the end, I went ahead and grabbed the bishop, and still I think this is winning. I think if queen takes a3, I think he would have still been all right. Let's think it through. Queen takes a3, queen to a2. Yeah, then queen takes queen. I don't think I've got an escape here. I can't capture the pawn. I can't block with my queen. He would have been absolutely fine. Oh, although, can you see the counter challenge that I've created here? And that is queen takes f7 check. Right, so that knight capturing the bishop actually opened the door for this move. Now, I hadn't actually seen that until after I'd made the move myself. Okay, now this is where I think my opponent loses his bottle. He loses his nerve, because the game is still won if he proceeds with his plan. Okay, now, so even if, let's say, he captures the pawn, my queen comes in there with check, king moves away, my queen is still 2 moves away from coming back here for checkmate, in which time he's got plenty of time to move in and checkmate me himself. Okay, but he bottles it. Okay, so what he does is he moves the rook across, which he didn't need to do. It wasn't a winning position for me. It would have taken me 3 moves to get checkmate. He's 2 moves away from checkmate. Okay, so at this point now I can move my queen back, and now I'm threatening checkmate there again on h7. Okay, on the other pawn that's protected by the knight. I'm also now defending the pawn there on a3, and I'm hitting the queen. So I'm 2 points up. So I'm a knight ahead, and he has 1 more pawn on the board. But looking at where his pawns are situated, this is not an attractive situation now for black. So basically, I'm either going to checkmate him on h7, which he can defend by playing obviously g6. But if g6, then I'm going to exchange queens, and I'm going to be a clear piece up. And one of the other psychological things as well is that I am higher rated than this guy. I'm 1400, he's 1300, and that, I think, makes a difference. Now, I had been in a lot of trouble in this game. This is where my opponent resigns, by the way. I've been in a lot of trouble in this game. I should have lost the game. I didn't play well. My accuracy was poor. I missed some opportunities. I blundered pieces. It really isn't a great example of playing chess, but I think it is a good example of holding your nerve, staring down your opponent, and winning through the psychological advantage rather than playing better chess. Okay, so I hope that this has been helpful for you in your games, even when you're on the back foot. The most important thing of all is slow down. Take your time. See what time you've got. Give yourself some time. There may be creative solutions. There may be sacrifices that change the flow of the game. Consider everything. Don't avoid the temptation automatically to go into, oh, I'm losing this, I've lost this, I can't win. We've all lost games where we've been seriously ahead, right? Haven't you? I mean, I can't count the number of games where I've had a crushing advantage, and it's difficult. It's really hard to win a game when you are hugely on top in material or whatever in the game. So when you're on top, it's still very, very crucial to slow down, take your time. When you are on the ropes, slow down, take your time. It really is the golden rule. Okay, so yeah, interesting experience. Hope it's useful for you. See you next time.